It's hard for me to cover this one because I very much appreciate that she did this, Brianna Joy Gray. Um, but at the same time, I'm so upset with her reporting um, and pushing the force the vote and all the other crazy things she's done since the Bernie campaign stopped. Um, she just took such a horrible turn, but this does appear to be a pretty great interview. So kudos to Brianna Joy Gray for this.
Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that
conservative writer and anti-woke author Bethany Mandel was on The Hill Rising, where she was asked a basic question. What is woke?
Right.
Define woke. You are an anti-woke author. You should be able to define what woke is.
Right.
And it all collapsed. So I'm going to show you that clip. I'm also going to give you a lot of context here. So I got a couple of clips from this interview, which was very well done. Credit to Brianna Joy Gray, who conducted the interview. And I'm also going to insert two other clips in this discussion, one including another appearance from Bethany Mandel on Fox News, which you're going to see how ridiculous that is. I'm also going to insert some data, and I'm also going to tell you what wokeness is. A lot of people want to know, including people that write books about it. They want to know, so I will help define what.
Well, I hope you also tell us who she is and why she's entitled to write on the subject and what her claim to fame is, because I've never heard of this woman before.
Woke is. But first, this is the big clip that went viral. I want to give credit here to the Vanguard. They're the ones that clipped this out of the interview on Twitter and made it go viral. So check out this, and there's some more context I include in my clip here.
the crux of the argument of the book is that there is sort of a woke reimagining of our society, and it's happening in a lot of different ways in a lot of different areas of our lives. And we hope that, parents of all political stripes will pick up the book. This is sort of a woke reimagining that is very, very, very far left. Only 7% of Americans consider themselves very liberal, and probably fewer of them consider themselves to be woke. And so, when we...
Well, hold up before she asks the question, and we're about to get to this clip, the viral clip. Where did you come up with your statistics? How do you define liberal? We should be asking that question too. What do you define as liberal? What do you define as leftist? What do you like? I mean, obviously, more than 7% of the country is registered Democrats. In fact, more than 50% of the country is registered Democrats. There are more Democrats in this country than there are Republicans, and so I'm very curious where you got your statistics.
What does that mean to you? Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression.
What?
Sorry, it's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite.
Yeah, look, your time.
We got time.
This exposes the grift. You wrote a book about how dangerous wokeness is for kids, and you can't even define what woke is? Just
Right.
a simple, basic definition. What is woke? Which, by the way...
Which is political correctness. It's just rebranded, right? It's a way of saying we should have the ability to act rude to people who are different from us. And reduce their place in society, take away their rights and freedoms. That's what it is. Come on and say it, bitch. Let's go.
Robbie, the conservative there on the panel, goes on to explain it. I'm going to help explain it here in a second. But how do you write a book about this and you don't even have a basic answer for this?
Right.
Even if your answer's wrong and it's ridiculous, just you don't have an answer?
Yeah, you should have something.
This reminded me a lot of Matt Walsh's appearance on Joe Rogan. So Matt Walsh did a whole documentary, an anti-trans documentary called What is a Woman? And he was asked about how many adolescents are on hormone blockers. And look at his answer compared to the reality. And remember, when he's answering this, he did a documentary about how dangerous trans ideology is.
Oh
How many people have had this done?
Depends on what. I don't think we have exact numbers, but if we're talking about the drugs, millions.
Millions.
You're talking about hormone blockers.
Yeah.
Millions of
blockers
kids have been on hormone blockers? Really?
Millions.
I'm sure someone's going to fact check me on that, but my guess is that we're into the millions now at this
Your
point.
guess.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
It's a very small number, if that's right.
It says over the last 5 years, there were at least 4,780 adolescents who started puberty blockers and had a prior gender dysphoria diagnosis.
How many?
Million sounds great.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
The Media Matters will have fun with that clip.
Yeah. Million sounds great. Works for your grift. And much like the Bethany Mandel clip, he also references how, this is going to go viral. Yeah, because it exposes your entire agenda. It exposes the whole grift you're doing. That you don't know what the hell you are talking about. That you are simply doing what you're doing for a paycheck.
Well, this is what the conservative wing of America has been doing for a long time, is just demonizing marginalized groups. That's all they fucking care about, because they want to live in an escapist world where they don't have to face their own problems and realize that we need some sort of economic justice for all. That we need Medicare for all. That we need a Green New Deal to save our planet. They are seriously just in this place of, I just want to be mad at everybody else who's different from me. That's all they fucking care about, is demonizing the people around them.
Now, to get back to Bethany Mandel, so she also said in that initial clip,
This is Shaka, my labradoodle.
Let's come back. All right. The ads, y'all.
you're talking about, that you are simply doing what you're doing for a paycheck. Now, to get back to Bethany Mandel, so she also said in that initial clip, only 7% of Americans define themselves as being very liberal, and probably fewer of them consider themselves to be woke.
Okay.
So she thinks less than 7% of Americans consider themselves to be woke. Here is a headline from just last week from The Hill. She's on The Hill Rising. From The Hill, most in new poll view woke as a positive term. So I broke this down in a video last week when AOC was exposing this whole committee hearing that the GOP was having on wokeness in the federal government again.
Well, the reason that they actually are viewing it as a positive term at this point is because the conservative side of the House, the conservative side of media, is turning woke into a racist term. Of if you are anti-woke, you are a racist, you are a bigot, you're homophobic, you're transphobic. That's what it means to the rest of us at this point. So the rest of us are like, oh, hell yeah, I'm absolutely woke. If that's what you're defining it as, then absolutely, I am woke. I'm woke.
Go watch that video to understand what the hell that was about. But this is from an Ipsos USA Today poll. Let me show you the results here quickly. 56% of people say that being woke is to be informed, educated on, and aware of social injustices.
There you go.
While 39% say to be overly politically correct and police others' words. Which, by the way, both can be true, depending on how the word's being used. So this is why this word is so stupid, because there is no real this is what it means. It's all about context around how the word is being used. So yeah, people can be overly politically correct or police others. Just to get back to the whole, how Matt Walsh fearmongers around trans people and Bethany Mandel in a roundabout way doing it as well. It's one thing to get something wrong. It's one thing to accidentally misgender somebody and then have, I don't know, maybe an awkward conversation, which is what it seems a lot of this is about. I'm going to get to her appearance on Fox News, which references that. But, it's one thing to have that awkward conversation, you misgender somebody, and then you're corrected, and then now you know their pronouns. Okay, move on with your life. Mm-hmm. It's another thing to be unwilling to learn and be unwilling to treat someone with basic human decency. Once you know how someone defines themselves, how they want to be called, and you still don't do that, at that point, you're just being a jerk. So, understand, yes, of course, there can be times where someone makes you feel bad for not knowing something. And yeah, you can feel bad in that moment. And maybe they're wrong to, get angry at you because you just didn't know. But you just learn, move on, and then it's fine. But to have an entire...
Yeah, I mean, people do accidentally get misgendered if, for example, if you are not introduced to their pronouns right away, or say you're in a large group and you can't remember what everybody said about their pronouns, because that happens too. It's kind of, I would equate it to coming up to a woman who might have a pot belly or something and asking them when they're due. You can't make assumptions. You cannot make assumptions about people's body shapes either. That can be incredibly insulting. You can't, you just got to do the best you can with what you have. But sometimes you might embarrass yourself, and you have to be ready to apologize.
To build your entire ideology around trying to avoid awkward conversations is a little much. And also in this poll, just to show you, if someone described you as woke, would you consider it an insult or a compliment? People are split, of course. Most Republicans view it as an insult. But largely, there aren't real majorities here. Because, again, it all depends on the context. Who's using it? How they're using it? How are they calling you that? Is it in a positive context, negative context? So, it could be viewed as both, regardless of who you are and how it's being used. Now, let me get to the rest of that clip, because there's more I want to discuss there, and then I'll get to Bethany Mandel's appearance on Fox News.
It's definitely something you know what it is when you see it, but...
Is it relevant?
It is.
Will you define wokeness then?
I would say it's the tendency to punish people formally or often informally for expressing ideas using language specifically that is very new, that no one would have objected to 5 seconds ago. So it's easier to come up with examples punishing people for using the wrong pronouns or identifying structures of that kind. I would say it's the system of doing actual censorship.
Let's take that example. Bethany, you're talking about small children. So is the argument in your book that a 5-year-old is coming home from school not using someone's pronouns and getting castigated by their teachers or family for not being sufficiently woke? Or is there some other kind of phenomenon that you're pointing to more specifically that's affecting young kids in your book?
So with the example of a 5-year-old, one example that one of my friends just posited on Twitter, her 5-year-old came home and said, I like girls. And so that means different things to different people. For an adult, and sort of what the adults were sort of telling that child and what they understood they were sort of framing for that child was that it's okay to be gay or straight, and more of a sexuality question. Whereas for children, it's more, I like girls and I like boys.
So Bethany, I saw that tweet that you mentioned. It was someone who said, I was recently at my friend's son's 8th birthday party. I was chatting with one of the moms, and she said that her 5-year-old daughter came home from school and said she likes girls, and that her teacher said that's okay. So the response seems to have been that's okay, without more editorializing about whether it's sexual or not, although you quote tweeted it saying, talking about sexuality with young children weird again.
Oh my God, what a crazy thing to get upset about. I mean, when I was in kindergarten, pretty much there was a war between boys and girls for the most part. We weren't having feelings like that yet. And it was just, boys are icky, boys have cooties. Because we just had different interests, and maybe we just weren't getting along together for whatever reason. But that was That's so fucking common, and you're going to attribute that to wokeness? For real? I mean, that is so fucking common for kids to come home and say, I don't like girls. I don't like boys. Whatever it is. Like, that's so normal for children. And y'all looking to the left as the ones who are being overly sensitive? Y'all can't figure this shit out? Have you never raised children before? Holy shit.
Make that weird again.
Yeah.
And without
Yes.
more, it does seem like that's just oh, that's fine, and let it go, and we'll see if she grows up and is actually lesbian, or she just likes hanging out with her friend Crystal. So what would you prefer a parent do? What do we think is the appropriate course of action there to tell a kid it's not okay to like girls?
No, so the rest of that tweet said, the mother was complaining that this is kind of constant messaging that's happening at the school.
Wow.
This is amazing
Oh my
because
God.
here Bethany Mandel is exposed again. This clip is not getting as much attention, but here the tweet. All the teacher did was say that's okay to the comment about this girl saying she likes girls. That's all the teacher did. Bethany Mandel is the one that quote tweeted it and then is the one that sexualized that comment.
Right.
When all the teacher said was that's okay. Again, exposing how these conservative commentators, these authors, they're the ones generating this grift out of absolutely nothing. And she goes on to make another argument about how, literature and movies for kids now, they're being exposed to more sexualization, when it's really just about movies recognizing now that there are same-sex relationships that exist in society. Was it sexualizing before when it was a prince and a princess?
Right.
No. So why is it one now if it's a...
Right, exactly. Look at all the Disney movies. You've got, what's her face? Sleeping Beauty has to be kissed without her knowledge to be awakened from the poison that Maleficent, I hope I'm saying her name right, injected into her by putting her in a trance. Come on. That was by the way, it's one of my favorite Disney movies, but it's totally abusive. And it is sexual assault. Look at some of the sex references in Aladdin. Look at some of the sex references. Okay. Body language in The Little Mermaid. You don't need to be able to speak. All you have to do is smile and and shake your hips. Are you for real? These concepts of what? Look at the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the whole the priest who kept fantasizing about Esmeralda. Come on now.
If it's two princesses. It's all so stupid. This is all about nothing. It's all a way to make money. It's all a way to fearmonger parents, get them to buy their books, watch their shows. It's all ridiculous. Now let me get to another example of that. Here's Bethany Mandel's appearance on Fox News about a year ago, again exposing just how empty all of this is.
There's this saying, squeaky wheel gets the grease, and the small minority within the Walt Disney Company that's part of the LGBT community are screaming the loudest. They're being the loudest. They're being the most vocal.
And Bethany, so he, one of the other things he said is the misconception is that everybody at Disney is a raging liberal, and that can't be further from the truth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I heard from a Disney employee who asked me sort of off the record, what can I do? How can I speak out? I'm afraid to talk on our company Slack. I'm afraid to talk to people in my office because I never know what is okay to say anymore. If you can't say a woman is a woman and a man is a man, you can't greet someone. And so it's a really sort of terrifying environment for him to work in 8 hours a day.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
That's terrifying. That's fucking terrifying. Disney, by the way, has done a lot of movies over the last few years that address mental health because they recognize and oftentimes they get tasked by the government to do this sort of stuff. They've recognized that there is a mental health crisis in America. That's why they had that I can't remember the name of the movie. It's one of the last Disney movies I watched, but it was the one where they were dealing with mental health issues. And also Soul, where they were dealing with the fears. This was released within the first year of the pandemic. From what I understand, it was planned before then, but we were in a pandemic at the time, and they released a movie about dealing with death in the afterlife, and trying to help children accept the idea that, look, your time on this planet is limited. Are these big concepts? They are, but that's how we teach children, is by putting it into cartoons and children's stories so that they are prepared with that knowledge by the time they're an adult. So all you ignorant motherfuckers out there who keep trying to prevent your children from learning, fuck's sake.
What a terrifying environment for this Disney employee to work in. 8 hours a day. Terrifying environment, because he may misgender somebody. He may have an awkward conversation where he's told what this person's pronouns are.
Oops.
Just terrifying environment. As opposed to, living in Florida as a trans person, where there is a bill to criminalize gender-affirming care, where Florida courts could allow emergency custody of kids with trans parents or siblings, even if they live in another state.
Jeez.
Or living in a country where the ACLU has tracked 413 anti-LGBTQ bills in the U.S., including over 10 in Florida.
Why? Why are you all so hateful? Why is that how you have to live your lives? I mean, most of you proclaim yourselves to be religious people. If that is the case, then you should be thinking about charity and acceptance and forgiveness, and the only person who is allowed to judge is God, not us, right? So if it doesn't affect you, shut the fuck up.
This is an actual terrifying environment. Misgendering somebody, having an awkward conversation where you learn what someone's pronouns are, and that's the extent of it. How is that terrifying? This is how they have defined their entire ideology around awkward conversations. Get over it. Learn someone's pronouns and move the fuck on. This is so...
Well, on the upside, David, the states that appear to be passing these laws have much smaller populations than the states who are not doing this. So, while it's unfortunate that we haven't federalized this, I mean, they should have already at this point been included as part of the special classes, right? Because that's where the federal legislation comes in, is that certain identity groups are classified as special classes so that they can't be discriminated against. They can't, but they still haven't done enough to bring in the LGBTQIA community into federal law and federal protections. But once they do that, and it's unlikely we can do that with a very slightly Republican majority in the House, right? But it seems like a logical thing to do, and they might be able to whip some of the Republicans to cross over the aisle for that, because there are gay Republicans. There are gay senators, I think. I'm just saying that, like, it doesn't make sense for them to make that their platform issue for 2024. And that's where it seems like it's going, is that this is going to be their presidential platform. Really? Really? Well, good luck. No, not good luck. I'm glad to see you all go down in fucking flames, because the majority of Americans today are perfectly fine with this. And if you guys want to, go down on a sinking ship with this kind of bullshit, by all means, keep looking like assholes, and we will overturn it as soon as we take back the House, which will happen in the next election, because the next election is going to have a much larger turnout of Democrats than the midterms. The midterms are considered off-season. We get a smaller turnout to the polls. We will catch up to you. We will overtake you.
All of this is so stupid. Yet they continue making these appearances on conservative networks, writing books, making documentaries, all because they're afraid of some awkward conversation and recognizing someone's humanity.
Yep.
Just being a decent person. They don't want to be decent people, so instead they make all this money off of this garbage.
Yeah, seriously, like why don't you guys focus your platform more on closing the wealth divide? You know, pumping up the middle class, making it so that we're not getting poorer and poorer. Why don't you talk about like how are you going to stimulate the economy and make it so that those of us who are not millionaires and billionaires have a shot at success in America? Like, you're making this country so much worse. Why would you focus on demonizing minority groups at all times? Why?